Hello everyone, this is Coach Matt back at it again in my room, and I just want to address some of the things that I've learned during this quarantine period. I know a lot of you guys are in very challenging situations, and I just want to add value to you today. So, I actually would want to talk about one of my favorite authors, the late Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago. I have two of the bestseller joke books from her as well. But what I find interesting is that this is not really a joke book in itself. This is one of the most inspiring books that I've ever read. Because if you want to dissect into the reading aspects of the book, and if you really get into the book and what it is saying, it will tell you one thing. It's about the author's individuality, it's about her journey towards her political career, and it's also taking a jab at the reality of the Philippines right now, which is, again, it is something that I don't want to discuss in this video, nor will I ever discuss that in the near future, because I don't want to have that kind of content in the internet. So, what what is the aspect, or rather, what are the topics that I would learn if I'm going to read these two books? Well, first off, you will learn that the author actually is a very smart author. Again, she is a lawyer. She's known as a great academic in our society as well. But what I find interesting is how Miriam positions herself not only as the author and professor as well, but also as someone that you would want to share a conversation with. And this is very rare for, or rather, this is rare for most academic authors, or especially of her caliber, since they talk a lot of jargon when it comes to their reading materials. But when it comes to Miriam's books, I don't know what it is specifically, and I'm going to be quite cheesy here to quote the Miriam Magic line, but there's a certain yeah, let's put it that way. There's a certain magic when it comes to reading her publications, especially Stupid is Forever and Stupid is Forevermore. I say that because it takes the idea of a joke in our setting here in the Philippines, which is rather usually slapstick or direct to the point jokes, but it gives you a lens of intellectuality, or being an intellectual, in using that kind of reference frame. So the jokes here have socio-political undertones. Again, Miriam is a lawyer, so that's one good thing about these books. But the thing that I want to highlight the most is that when you read the jokes themselves, it really challenges your understanding of what should be prioritized here in the Philippines. And again, I'm not going to dwell into the political undertones of the book, although it's going to be quite a challenge since the author is a prominent politician and a quite good lawyer at that as well. But the entire message of the book seems to be that if you're living in the moment right now, you have to enjoy it because it's a part of your life. It's a part of your present. And we often underestimate the fact that we live in the present world. What we tend to do as humans is to over exaggerate and over analyze or overthink the idea behind what's next or what's the future would be. And case in point, we also provide a huge emphasis on what the past may lie. So, say for example, we cannot move on from the past because it's too hurtful for us, and we have negativity bias as humans. But also, we do have a tendency to overthink about the future. So, what tends to happen is you're not living in the present. You're living as a prisoner between the past and overthinking about the future without foresight or without any direction at all. And this is where I would like to get into the core of the message of the books themselves, because I didn't interpret it to be a joke book as itself or its physical value as a joke book. It's a book about hope. It's a book about inspiration. And if you look into the lines of her of her commencement speeches or her graduation speeches, which are also included in the books, by the way, you get to know Miriam more as a person, not just your not just the Iron Lady of Asia, or someone that you know who is a great politician, a great lawyer, or a great teacher. No, it's more than that. It's the idea that this person, and by the way, may she rest in peace. She was my favorite senator, by the way. But it is in these publications that I see the core of Miriam Defensor Santiago as a person. She's a fun-loving person. Although she has a different interpretation of what fun is, but the idea there, or rather, the idea within these books is it's using a tool to catch attention, which is comedy in a sense. Other people would just say that it's a joke book. Well, that's given much since, again, it's marketed as a joke book, but it's more than that. So, I began to understand how Miriam feels about the country, about life in general, as I mentioned. So, when I read the publications, or when I finished reading these books, I began to realize that there is a reason why, again, aside from the fun aspect of it, this is a bestseller, because it gives you an emphasis not of the past and the future, but the moment that you are right now. By the way, for context, the first book I read this before the actual quarantine period. This one I just finished this last month or so, I guess. Yeah, last month. But the message is fresh for every single situation that you are in life, and I think this is published in 2018. Yeah, I bought this late. So yeah, those two books actually highlight what my point here is in the video, or rather, what my point in the video is, something that I took from the books that I've read, which is to live life as if it's in the present. It's not that you tend to overthink, or rather, it's not a way for you to overthink about the future, because the future is going to happen, and the future will be dictated by the person who's living their lives, which is you. The past is something that we can look as reference, but never as a prison, because again, we humans tend to think of the past as our prison, or every single mistake that we made in life is somehow a prison that imprisons us towards that certain life event. And this is where a lot of things become challenging, or really become interesting, because if your past is challenging and your present is equally challenging, both you mentally and you financially right now, then what about your outlook of the future? Because if the core message of every single author, or in this case, if it's Miriam's books, it's about the present, or at least in how I understood it, how about if we are going to put it in the context of what we have right now in the world, which is the quarantine phase? So in the past, it seems that we may have different pasts, right? So we may have a different vision of the past. Some of you guys have a jolly future of your past before the quarantine period started, and other people who would really want to move on and just live their lives towards the fullest towards 2020. Hence why other people are rushing to really be in 2020, because they want to move on from 2019. Now, here is an interesting position, since if you think that your 2019 year wasn't really a good year for you, and 2020 right now is challenging as a present, what now is your outlook towards the future? Then I believe that is very much documented by social media posts right now. So the outlet of these people are in social media, that much is true. But what I'm hinting at here is the mindset of these people that think, or rather overthink of the future, and also over imprisons themselves rather in the past. These are the things that make us stressed over the present times, because the challenges of the present times is actually something that we are focusing right now. So this quarantine period around the world forces us, and I'm going to put an emphasis on that, it forces us to reflect on the present. It's not a gift, it's not something that you it's not something that you choose to do, but it's a wake up call. It's something that we as humans needed. And again, I'm not going to strafe within the morality of the issue. I'm not here to do that. But what I'm doing here is to give you a thought process of how your present life can affect your future and how your past life affected your present life. Because if you think about life, it's not going to be linear by the structure of it, or rather by timelines, but the influence can be linear. Say for example, you were raised a certain way as a kid. This is your childhood, and your childhood influenced your teenage years, and your teenage years eventually are influencing your adulthood right now, and so on and so forth. So what I'm hinting at here is simple. These times are really challenging, and no one's going to deny that. I'm not here to attest that. But what I'm saying here is, in order for you to have a hopeful future ahead, you must create a hopeful present right now. Because again, if there's one thing that you can change and you can impact, it is your present life. The future will happen eventually. It will happen in no time, I believe you. But if you focus on the present, you're already creating your future. And guess what? No matter what it is that you tend to do right now, you can never ever change your past. You can only learn from it. But what is interesting, however, is that in this phase of life that we have, the quarantine phase as I call it, we are now forced to actually look at the influence of time in our lives. While some of us have the privilege to be at home, we are working on a way for us to reflect on time's influence in our lives. Because back then, when everything was quote unquote normal, we see time as if it's just a tool that for us to observe, or at least it's natural for us to live with it. But take the freedom away from us, or rather the routine, should I say, take the routine away from us of the so-called normal back then, and then we get something that is new, something that is uncomfortable for us. And this is again a way for us to reflect on our present. And now more than ever do we really have to see the effect of the present, or rather of the present sorry, of the present on our lives. So what's my point? What's the entire what is something that I will learn from here, Coach Matt, from the past 30 minutes? I just want you to reflect on your present, on the present time. Because again, this if I'm going to talk to you about your future, if I'm going to talk to you about your past, then there are a lot of people on the internet doing that for you. And you can actually do it yourself. But what you cannot do on your own is to live your life in the present. Why do I say that? Because right now, you are being influenced by the same people that you watch, you listen, and you also interact with. That means that your present life right now is a byproduct of your decisions. And these decisions dictate the direction of your life. This is very interesting because I truly believe that you are autonomous. You are someone that would make the decisions for yourself. Again, I'm going to quote one of my favorite authors here, Miriam Defensor. Life is not a search, or rather, I'm going to just read it from the from the bookmark. What is the meaning of life? She asks. The meaning of life is not for you to find, but for you to define. The meaning of life is found in the purposes that we pursue as we grow older. See? It's about you deciding on your own. It's about the journey itself. It's about what you make of it. And again, as I've mentioned earlier, life is not linear, that when you were born, you'll have a great life, and at the end of your life you will die. That's not it. That's not the that's not the linear way of looking at life, because life is much more colorful and complicated than that simple analogy. And this is also why I find that when the time comes that a person would die or would leave this earth, the dates between their birthday and the day wherein they leave this earth, or their death date, there's only a single dash line that is a representative of whatever it is that you did with your life. For me, that little dash right there is quite insulting, because it's it's a symbol. It's a symbol of your life. For you to just narrow it down to a dash, that's quite insulting. At first, I thought of that as well, but when I grew up, I understood that it's, who cares? I mean, it's just symbolism that we put as humans in our deathbed. But if you're going to analyze it, it's not about life and death. It's about what you did with the borrowed time that was given to you. And this is where my mindset about life is, in the present, or in the present times, and living in the present. And this is my definition of life right now, metaphorically speaking. So in relation to living with the present as well, this is my definition of life and living within the present. So it is what you make it. It is the journey that will eventually be passed on. It's the stories that you make, the people that you meet, and the legacies that you will pass on to towards the next generation. And if we really want to inspire change within our community, we must start within ourselves, within our youth, within our leaders, and we must be the leaders. So that's it. This is also why I love this joke book in the first place, because it's not just telling you socio-political undertones that will make you a good, or rather, that will really create a great giggle, but it actually gives you ample amount of information that will not only inspire you but also motivate you to do bigger and better things than yourself. One last line from the late senator that I really love is that you shouldn't be like me, you should be better than me. And that is an arms race call, or rather a call to raise arms. Sorry, I'm quite distracted by my floor. That's a call to raise arms in terms of ideas, or the mindset that us, the youth, are being challenged by this really magnificent person who shared her life within our lifetimes, that she's challenging us to be better than her. And I don't know how you will interpret that. You may interpret that literally, but to my interpretation, that means that it's not literally to be better than her in terms of all aspects, but it's to be a better change than what she did. Because again, if you're going to talk about Miriam, she is just one person, but the change and the influence that she have with so many people, even in the youth, even in our age group, is vast. It's so huge to even quantify. So yeah, it's quite an experience when you read these two books. And if you're just going to have a quick laugh, then this may be a great book for you. If you're also into the highly intellectual comedy, then yeah, this is a great find. This is also a good book. This is written in Taglish, by the way, so don't be what you call this, don't be scared on picking up these two books. My mother actually finished both of them, surprisingly enough. um she did get a quick laugh from it though. So yeah, what else do I have? What else do I have for this? It's a great book. You should buy it. If you're in the market for a joke book, that's a good one. Or if you just want to laugh at the same time, then yeah, also a great brain teaser. So I think that will be it for me, guys. Any updates on what I would do next would be also uploaded in the channel right now that we have different ISP. So expect more videos to come. Bye.